Hey everybody, my name is Ryan, and this is my second video in my series of Intermediate Spirit Island Guides. So, our first game, we played as Lightning Swift Strike against Prussia 3. And the reason why I picked that particular matchup is because Lightning is probably the simplest of all of the spirits in the game in terms of the decisions that are directly tied to the spirit itself, and Prussia is the simplest of all the adversaries, with no special rules worth paying attention to. So this game, we're going to be playing a slightly more complicated spirit, River Surges in Sunlight, and we'll be playing against a much more complicated adversary with the Kingdom of France. River Surges in Sunlight is considered by many to be the best spirit to learn the game on, because of the way that it makes you think about the difference between slow and fast, and the way that you have to prepare for many turns in advance in order to play very effectively. And it has some very clear, distinguished weaknesses as well. So if you need to find ways to overcome these weaknesses in order to win the game. France is a bit of a more complicated adversary. So there's going to be a little bit more going on instead of just playing Spirit Island in a more vanilla sense, but we're going to have to take into consideration the things that France does to make the game more difficult. So with all the expansions, there are 7 different adversaries in the game, and they make the game difficult in different ways. It can be very challenging to remember every single thing about every single adversary. And so we want to find ways to simplify how we think about an adversary. So with France, how do we simplify it? Well, let's take a look at their additional loss condition. There's only 7 towns per player, and the invaders win if you can never place an additional town. So for solo play, that means the 8th town being put onto the board triggers an automatic loss. Now, if we take a look at everything else that France does, it is an iteration on that theme. It makes that loss condition more likely to happen, and so that's really the entire identity of France, is putting out towns quickly and making you lose because of it. So the stage 2 escalation, after the Explore, you either get a blight or a town. Okay, you could lose with too much blight, you can lose from getting a town, so it's kind of a lose-lose situation. Okay, 1 combines with 2, where France 1 adds extra explorers on the explorers, and then France 2 takes those extra explorers and turns them into extra towns. And then France 3 just adds more towns to the board at the start of the game. So really, this France 1, France 2 interaction is what we're going to be the most cognizant of over the course of this game. So as you probably know, River does a lot of pushing, and that's always great and that's always fun, but you got to be careful. We might wind up in a situation where there's like 5, 6 explorers in a single land, and then that land comes up to build, and that's when the suffering starts. It's also worth noting that France does have a special event, Slave Rebellion. The way that you want to simplify this is you just want to know when it's going to hit and the very basic setup of what you want to do. So we know that this will hit on the 3rd turn of the game, and you just want to make sure that you have a couple to Han and a town together. That's really all you have to do to think about Slave Rebellion. If you play specific spirits or if you draft specific cards, you can add a little bit more complexity. But for going into the game, all we have to do is consider that a very specific turn. We just want to make sure that there's a town with a couple to Han in a single land. Thinking beyond that is just going to give us extra labor, and I find that to be unnecessary. So, without further ado, let's just get into it. All right. So, there's a pretty standard opening for River. Just like Lightning, we have add 0 presence, add 2 presence, add 1 presence as our 3 growth options. And in general, it's always best to add as much presence as possible. So we're going to try and do growth 2 to add 2 presence as much as we possibly can. Okay, this was just the same thing with lightning. With lightning, we just added 4 presence, reclaim for the rest of the game. With river, it's definitely possible to do that. However, that's a little bit of a trap, and we don't want to get caught in a perpetual reclaim cycle. So that'll be taken into consideration sometime in the future. But until that happens, we're going to stick with double presence bottom, double presence off the bottom, reclaim, and we're going to go from there. So we see that we have a mountains explorer. We know that we're going to have a explorer and a town here, explorer, town, city here. The explorer, town, city, we're probably not going to be able to do anything about that. So it's better to just cut our losses, just like we did with the lightning game, and just kind of accept the blight. Now here's the tricky thing, is that the only way that we'll be able to get into range to affect this land here is to grow through the mountains and all the way over here to the jungle. Okay, by adding 1 presence at range 1, add a presence at range 1. By doing that, we will be able to interact with this land in the slow phase. Okay, well, do we want to sacrifice our presence? Generally not. So what's our other option? We could grow here and then grow here into the wetlands. Right? We always want to go wetlands for our special rule. And then, is there anything we can do with this in the fast phase of our next turn? Well, yes, there is. We have flash floods, deal 2 damage in a coastal land, kill the town, life goes on. Okay, I think that's a little bit better. It also allows us to focus our entire first turn by focusing on preparing for the second ravage. And by being able to get ahead of the adversaries right from the beginning of the game, that's how we slingshot ourselves to a much easier victory. Okay, we have our standard opening. All slow. Going into the sands. This is great for us. Because, well, we can entirely deny this sands from doing anything. Okay, we can do a wash away, and we can get these explorers out. There'll be nothing there, so no build will happen. This disease is here, so no build will happen here. No additional towns will be added to the board. So it'll be very stable. That's fantastic. Now, we can push these explorers into 4 different lands. They can both go to the same land. We can split them. We can do whatever we want. So why would we? So how are we going to justify doing one thing versus another thing? Well, now we have to do some planning. Let's take a look at our spirit. River Surges, very straightforward spirit, 1 innate power, and it's considered by many to be the best innate power in the game. This innate by itself can be the center of your game plan, and that is good enough to beat every single adversary at level 6 besides England. So for 6 of the 7 adversaries, just playing Massive Flooding at top tier every turn is honestly enough to win against everyone. So how are we going to set this up? Okay, it does 2 damage to every invader, but only in a single land. So we want to pick a single land that'll become that massive death land. Well, take a look at this mountain's number 7. We already have a city there, and we can't push cities. So that's not going anywhere. So we could just put everything into this land here, and we know that because it's already ravaging, mountains aren't going to come up for a couple more turns. And so we're safe from all these explorers turning into towns, at least for the near future. So we're going to push everything into this land. If we had chosen other lands, right, wetlands or the jungle, we know that one of those 2 will be the next card coming up in the Explore, And so we basically create problems for ourselves again in the future. The goal with all of these pushes is just to set ourselves up so that way we don't need to worry about this issue for the longest time possible. So with that in mind as well, we can push a town or an explorer. And I'm going to choose to push this town into mountains number 7. Right now, we already have a bunch of adversaries in this one land. And when we use our massive flooding on it, several turns into the future, that'll be very, very effective for us. Lastly, River's Bounty, just kind of get to collect some Dahan. Actually, we know that we don't need to do anything with the sands. We might. There's a 50% chance of us getting this wetland, so why not? Let's just put him in there. Could be useful. Might be a blank. Okay, and now we will get to stick with our original game plan, just adding 2 more presents off the bottom. And when I place these presents, let's have some quick consideration. Just like when we were using lightning, we wanted to make sure that we could use our innate in every single land in the game. Similarly, with river, we need a sacred site within 1 range to use our innate. And currently, we can affect every single land on the board except for this corner mountain. So for us to set up a sacred site next to it, we could either go in the sands or we could go in the jungle. We know that we're probably taking a blight in this sands unless something cool happens. So therefore, we don't want to put our presence there because then we'll just lose it. And if we can avoid losing our presence unnecessarily, that's always better. Okay, reclaim, play our 3 cards out. That gets us the tier 2 of our innate. This is all a standard opening for river. It's generally correct in basically every situation. All right, add a town to a land with stuff. Well, we get to put this base on one of these places, and we've already picked out a land that we're going to be obliterating at some point in the near future, and that is, of course, this mountain. So it makes sense. Let's just stick with our game plan. We know we want to put a we know we want to do tons of damage in that land, so we'll just, prepare for that inevitable point sometime in the future to just be better when it happens. Fantastic. We have our Jungle Explorer. Okay, so we want to put Dahan in places where they might help us in the future, right? Dahan, maybe with a fear card, can provide defend. Maybe with an event, they can, push explorers, or, they can help us in all kinds of different ways. We don't know what the event cards are going to do, right? We don't know what the fear cards are going to do. All we can do is give ourselves the greatest opportunity for a good thing to happen. And then we can kill this town and then move this explorer in. So after just 2 turns, we have all of our problems consolidated down to just 2 lands. And this is exactly what we want to do with River. We know that we are very good at doing a lot of damage in one spot and one spot only. So we want to, set ourselves up in the best way possible. Now, especially because of this disease, right, we can work on taking care of this sands, and we can also blow this up whenever we need to. Thankfully, because of this disease, we can just wait until a mountain card comes up and then hit everything in this land. The only way that could possibly hurt us is if we got the event, which makes disease not happen. So, we understand that we're taking a risk by leaving all of these explorers in one land, but if it pays off, it'll pay off huge. Great. So, right now we are in a fantastic position. We're going to take a blight most likely, but that's okay. We still have one more to spare before the card even flips over. Right? One of our 2 lands isn't even going to build. The other one, we have a Sacred Site, we have 3 Dahan, right? So we have a lot of tools there that could randomly help us. So if we're in a less fortunate situation, I might recommend that we would reclaim. That would keep us stronger in the moment. Now, considering that we're in such a fortunate situation, I think it's better for us to be a little bit more greedy. Sometimes you'll have these opportunities where you get ahead of the invaders and you don't really know what to do. The best thing to do is either to scale or to win the game. Do we think we can win the game like right now or in next turn? No. Therefore, we want to scale. We want to find ways to get a little bit stronger, a little bit more powerful, so that way in the future we will be more effective. So to do that, let's just gain a power card, add a presence. We'll gain whatever power card here. We get a reclaim 1. We'll have a much weaker turn than we normally would, but we'll be so much stronger for the rest of the game. Getting this additional presence will get us the 4th card play that we need, such that we can use our massive flooding. And then from there, we could reclaim every turn for the rest of the game, play massive flooding every turn for the rest of the game, and probably win. But by taking this turn off now, we give ourselves the opportunity to do so in the future. Now, if you really wanted to be greedy, you could even add double presence. You could go, 4 card plays with the 2nd energy, okay? Or you could even go all the way up to 5 card plays. I'm choosing to take a slightly less bold maneuver, and the reason for this is because this land is going to be a threat. We set ourselves up such that it might not be a problem. It's less likely to be a problem with the Dahan and the Beast there and the Sacred Site. There's all kinds of ways that an event could randomly help us. But, because we're in such a great position, why not? Just think about a way that we could get hurt, protect ourselves. Quicken the Earth Struggle is fantastic for that reason. We could also take Twilight Fog Brings Madness. That's actually a very interesting one. Okay. So, the more I look at it, every single card here is effective for the text that it says, but Twilight Fog has great elements. So let's just go through them quickly. Rights to land rejection, right? We could deny a build. We could just prevent this from building altogether, and then we'll just go into the Ravage with 2 explorers and all that. If we really wanted to, we could use our 2-cost spell to kill one of the explorers to prevent a blight, right? So this one will prevent a blight from happening. Lure of the Unknown, we could use this to pull an explorer out, and then on the next turn, repeat it, or use it again to pull the town out, right? Prevent a blight from coming. Quicken the Earth Struggle. Just defend 10 and let everything die to the Dahan. And then Twilight Fog Brings Madness. It has good elements for us with the Sun Water, but it also adds a Strife. So with France, we know that we have an event coming up. This is one of those things that really dictates what spirits are good or not so good against France, and that is the ability to add Strife. So if you are playing Pandemonium Lightning, or if you are playing Grinning Trickster, those are the 2 spirits that everyone thinks about when they think about adding lots of Strife. And for those spirits, playing against France is just free. You just set up your board such that you have Dahan in all the right places, Strife all the right things, and then when that event comes up, the Slaves' Rebellion, you just win. And we can kind of do so in the same way here. So we're going to take Twilight Fog. We're going to add a presence. I'm going to add it right here into this mountains, and we get a free Reclaim 1. So we will go with the River's Bounty. In general, I love this card. You know, you get to add more Dahan to the board. You get to free energy. You know, this allows us to stay on 1 energy gain per turn and have so much energy in the bank. We might even pick up a major at some point just because with the River's Bounty and the Boon of Vigor, we're effectively at 2 or 3 energy gain per turn. Now, if you're playing multiplayer, Boon of Vigor is an amazing ability to help out your teammates. So perhaps in this situation, if you were playing a 2 or more player game, you could reclaim the Boon of Vigor in order to help someone else out. But this is what I'm sticking with, and you will go from there. Each land with at least 2 explorers, push one land without invaders. Okay. So all we want to do is make sure that we don't put any of the explorers into this jungle. We don't want to have an unnecessary build. So we'll go here, here, and then this guy we can put into this sands. The Ravage is not going to do anything. And the beast can move and do a single damage. So I'm going to have the beast come over here and just completely clear that land. We could have the beast come into the sands here, but it would not completely clear the land. And with River in particular, we want to have a smaller quantity of lands that are causing us trouble. Since we're so overwhelmingly powerful in a single land at a time, we want to reduce the number of lands that can cause us trouble. Great. Awesome. So we can use Twilight Fog to add a strife to either one of these towns, and then that town will die because of the event card. So I'm going to put the strife here. It requires you to push 1 Dahan, so we'll push him up here. And then I will use River's Bounty. I'm only going to gain 1 of those in. So that we have the Dahan here, the extra, the extra energy and everything like that. And then here we can push an explorer or a town. So I am going to push an explorer over here. By pushing the explorer instead of the town, what's the big trade-off? Well, we know that this upcoming event is going to be the Slaves Rebellion. So if I had pushed the town, the Slaves Rebellion would add a strife and an extra Dahan into this mountain. Right now, yeah, that's cool, right? But it doesn't do anything for us right now. And then we'd have 3 explorers here. And so after the build, we would have 3 towns and an explorer. By doing it this way, I can have this town get killed by the Slaves Rebellion, then only 2 explorers build, which means that there's going to be 2 towns and an explorer. So by doing it the way that I did it, I prevented an entire town from existing. Great. Now we will reclaim. Get to gain a free minor power. I like everything I have. I don't want to forget anything, so there's no point going for a major. And here we have a couple great options. We care a lot about our elements. Our most important thing is to hit massive flooding every turn. So we need water as our priority. Spur on with Words of Fire is just never going to be considered for me. Because it only gives us a sun, which is our second most important element. And it basically has blank text. It just says that you can play another card. So if I can play another card, why not play a card that I actually want to play? So the other 3, all of them have water, and then these 2 also have sun. There are no earths in our options here. So first we have Reach and Grasp. Target spirit gains 2 extra range. So if we did not effectively set up our presence earlier and our sacred sites earlier, we might want to take Reaching Grasp, because that would allow us to, use our abilities in places we normally couldn't. However, in this situation, we're looking pretty. Okay, Uncanny Melting. Okay, removing a blight and getting a fear. Well, that's pretty good, because I have blight here that I want to remove, and that would allow me to ignore ravages in the future without being scared of blighting out. And then last is Call the Dahan Ways, and it lets us turn someone into a Dahan. And if we have a second moon, which we do happen to have in this situation, we can also just straight up replace a town with a Dahan. That's also very compelling. This is tricky. Taking a look at my options and the way that I see this playing out, I'm actually leaning towards Call of the Dahan Ways. If I were to play this, though, this turn, I would want to also play Twilight Fog, because then I can, turn a town into a Dahan. Alright, so maybe here I could do that. But then I would not be able to use my top level innate, because that would be 2 cards, and I would have to have 2 more waters, 2 more suns, and an earth. And I do not have any cards that provides me all 3 elements, so it would be impossible to get the top level innate. So now that I say all that out loud, I'm actually more interested in Uncanny Melting, because this provides immediate utility. I could play it this turn and provide immediate value. So I like that. Also, it minorly shores up our biggest weakness as River, and that is that we have no innate fear generation. Pushing everything around all game is great, and you can prevent every blight by never letting anything exist anywhere, but you'll still lose the game because you'll just not have fear card, or not have the fear that you need before the invader deck runs out. So it's only 1 fear, but every fear matters. Alright, so I know I want to hit my full innate. So it's worth noting with this spirit that if you just play your starting hand, you do get massive flooding. Now, we have 2 cards that we've drafted that have Sun Water, so maybe we want to switch some things around. Boon of Vigor just gains you an energy, doesn't do anything else. So this is always the first card that I'm willing to sacrifice to play something else. And I'm going to play Uncanny Melting. Now, every single card that I've played does something. I believe, looking at everything, we're going to look back, and this is going to be the key turn that will have won the game for us. Because as I'm looking at it, we will have 2 towns die from the event, and then 4 towns will be built. That'll leave us with 0 towns left over. Then we're going to have an explorer. If we get a coastal, great. But if we get any of the terrains, then it will force us to take a blight in order to prevent us from adding that final town that will cost us the game. And then we will push everything into this land here, destroy everything, and the game will be won. So let's go ahead and let's play this out. Okay, Flash Floods. If I use the Flash Floods here on this city, then I will be able to destroy the city with the rest of the innate. If the other thing that I could do with Flash Floods would be to pick off one of these explorers. And if I were to do that, that would give me 1 fewer town to worry about. And it could protect us from some kind of an event. As I think about it, I think we are in such a great position. We're not worried about winning the game so much anymore as we are not losing the game. So I'm going to use my Flash Floods in this land here. This land we are slightly stronger in than we are in this land because we have the Dahan. With this land, there's going to be 3 enemies, and I'll just use a wash away to clean it all up. Here I have a greater range of choices because of those Dahan. A fear card could always bail us out. Great. France, we knew this was coming. Add the strife here. They both die. Pick up some free Dahan. Great. And now I get to use a power now instead of later. Great, we could even use our massive flooding right now. But I'm not going to. Let's take a look at every single possible thing that could happen. How can we possibly lose the game from this situation? So we've been talking so much about the special rule, and that is if we were to add 5 more towns. Okay, we know that we're going to be building 3 towns off of this build right here, so that'll leave us 1 more that we're allowed to put up. Like I said, if we get coastals, right, there is no stage 2 escalation. If we were to go for sands, right, we could either get a blight cascade here that would blight us out, or we could add a town to this one, and then all would be well. If we were to get a mountains, okay, we could get a blight cascade here, or we could just add a town over here. And the last option would be jungle, right? And then we could just add a town here, and we'd be okay. So I want to, since I know that I can't lose because of that, and we can play around any kind of a blight cascade. We're not worried about blighting out. I don't feel like we are in a threat to reasonably lose. So we could do a River's Bounty. It doesn't really do much of anything for us. We could remove a blight. It doesn't help. It doesn't hurt. It really doesn't make a difference at all. I guess we could remove this blight here, and then we could just take a blight in case we were to get that explore, and then that would just prevent 1 town from existing. That's not a bad option. Wash away. We want to wait for the build to happen just so we can, let them build up, just so we can knock them back down. That'll give us more fear. So after looking at all the options, I think Uncanny Melting is the best because there is a tangible benefit, and if we were to wait, we're probably going to wind up doing the exact same thing anyways. Defend 1 on all land, great. All right, we got the mountain. So we could Blight Cascade here. Not interested in doing that unless we have to. So I'm going to add this town over here. All right, and then we can do a wash away. Knock all these guys in. And I'm realizing I said that I would flash floods this land instead of this land, but I guess we made it this far. Okay, knock everything down. And let's get some Dahan. Right, and the way it is right now, we could probably just reclaim every turn for the rest of the game and win. We have a disease here. We can just put a strife on this guy, put some Dahan, solve that city, put the rest of our energy for the turn into this land. I think we're in a great position. We could choose to play greedier, but regardless of what we do, we're going to have the opportunity to gain a power card. So let's think, do we want to play greedy, right? If we choose to gain a power card and add a presence, we'll still get to play 4 cards. And if we pick up anything with a sun water, we'll be able to reclaim the earth water card and then still hit our massive flooding. And if we miss, we get a level 2 massive flooding instead of a level 3. We don't have any place on the board right now where doing a 2 or doing a 3 makes a big difference. So I like the idea of just scaling, set ourselves up for the future. So we don't have a card that will allow us to hit our top level massive flooding. And we do have one card with water on it. And it's actually a fantastic card for us. If we hit an elemental threshold, which we do not have the capacity to do yet, we'll destroy a town. Great. Steam Vents would be a great option. But it's worth noting we don't have to do that. We can consider any of these other cards, and we'll still hit our tier 2 innate. So let's just take a look at them, right? Rouse the Trees and Stone, 2 damage. I read that as destroy a town, and then push and explore. It's also worth considering that doing 2 damage would be another way to put damage onto a city, such that you'll be able to kill it with your massive flooding. In fact, you could do a damage each to 2 different cities and kill 2 cities in the same go. Right? So this card's looking pretty good. Inflame the Fires of Life. It's another way to get strife. Okay, right, great. Well, the France card is not coming back. The Slave Rebellion is not coming back for many turns, so that's probably not going to be relevant. Adding the disease, that's fantastic. You know, we can push a ton of explorers into a land, put a disease there, not going to be a problem. And then here there be monsters. This adds quite a bit of fear, but it does what we already do, and it does it worse than we already do it. So I don't see a situation where this card is the one that we're looking for. The way I see it, we have 3 great choices. And I think the most reliable one for us will be Rouse the Trees and Stones. Being able to pick off a town and push and explore is very valuable. Being able to kill set our cities up, to be able to destroy them, that's also very valuable. So I think this provides us great utility, and it covers one of our weaknesses. You know, if we kept on doing the same thing, and got really good at this one thing in particular, we might lose if that one thing is not the right thing. So, play that. And we can add this anywhere. I'm going to put it right in with all the action. We can reclaim a card. Reclaim River's Bounty so that we can do our little shindig right here. And play the Grip. Oh, I didn't plan for anything for this land. Whoops. Oh, we made it this far. Or you could just get bailed out by the event. Haha. Now let's say we didn't get that fear card. Let's say we got a blank. Basically, we would have taken a blight, and we have blight removal for the wetlands. Okay, so it's not a big deal. And we would have lost a presence, but that's okay. We can always just grow back into that land. You know, it was a risk. Could I have avoided it? Probably. It just passed my mind. Okay. So what do we do here? Because we're looking at our tier 2 innate, I think it'll be good for us to put it into this sands, put a town into the sands, because we can kill the town and push everything out, and then we don't have to deal with that problem anymore. Alright, so we'll strife that, push this guy back towards the center. We will use our innate here. I'm going to push all these explorers into the land with the disease. River's Bounty to get everything back. And then we will rouse over here. Kill a town. Push and explore. We don't want to go into the sands because it'll just turn into a town. So we'll put it into the jungles. Great. So this land could turn into trouble for us. Might get bailed out by a fear card again. But let's take a look at our cards to see what we want to do. And I'm thinking that I might want to take a major this turn. There's a lot of good majors that could help us. So you know what? Let's go for it. You know, let's take a major. We're in a great position. And yeah, we're in a fantastic position. So we could take most of these cards and do fine. So really, you could take a look at these cards in as two different couples. So we have our damaging beast powers, and we have our defensive Dahan powers. So let's take a look at Rapid Wings of Sunlight. It gives you a defend 5 basically anywhere you want. Great, that's 5 damage coming in. That'll fully defend it. Okay, this one will give us 2 defend per Dahan. So defend 4, that would also work. But also, it lets the Dahan do 1 damage apiece. Kill the town, defend the city. Great, that'll work well for us too. If we look at Tiger's Hunting, this would allow us to add more beasts and use those beasts to do damage. Right now we have nothing else that goes with beasts. So we could do, 2 damage in this land? That wouldn't solve our problems. It could turn into something in the future if we play this card over and over and over again. We could dominate this space. Similarly with sea monsters, it doesn't help us right now. You could play it over and over and over again in order for it to be effective in the future. But I'm less inclined to do that. Playing a 5-cost card over and over and over again before it finally does anything, not what I'm interested in. So beasts, I'm not looking at it. Now we have our 2 Dahan and Defend cards here. And both of them will solve our problem right now. So we have to decide, what do we want for the future? And also their elements and their elemental thresholds. Both of them require sun. We got that no problem. But then they become different. It's a matter of, do we have earth and grass, or do we have wind and animal? So we do have 1 earth grass card right here. We can play Rouse the Trees and Stone, plus trees, and then any sun card, and we'll threshold this. Okay? If we do that, we will not be able to hit our top level Massive Flooding. Okay, right? That's a trade-off. And then Rapid Wings of Sunlight would require us to do a wind and an animal in addition to that sun. We do have a wind, we do have an animal, and both of those cards provide the sun, and we could play Rapid Wings of Sunlight plus those 2 cards, plus, Wash Away and any other sun water card, 5-card plays, and that would let us hit our top level innate. For that reason, Rapid Wings of Sunlight is stronger, in my opinion. Now we do have to forget a card, and I will choose to forget Boon of Vigor. Card's basically just blank text, just says gain 1 energy. I prefer doing things, and we have enough cards with the reclaim 1 every turn that we're going to soon start adding presents off the top track, and that will give us more energy, so we no longer need it. So why not just do everything to get our innate off? All right, so we have our innate, we have our wrap, solved. We'll be able to kill everything in this land, and after the build. And that will probably put us, if we don't win, if we don't get enough fear to win, which 3 fear, we should be just fine, then we will be damn near close to winning. Okay, so we need to put our flash floods on this city in order to make sure that it's low enough health for us to kill it. And then Rapid Wings of Sunlight. I'm just going to target this. I'll just go from here. Don't need to gather. Even though we have the threshold, I'm not so concerned about it. It is good, though, if you're in a situation, let's say that a Blight card came out, the one that makes you sacrifice a presence every single turn. It makes it harder and harder and harder to reliably trigger Wrap. So being able to gather, just having that option available to you, I find to be incredibly valuable. Well now, that's unfortunate. We're taking a Blight anyways. Okay, disease are irrelevant this turn. So since we know that disease are irrelevant this turn, we want to protect our souls for a future turn. So this is a pretty weak land for us. We have no presence there. We'd have to, we just don't have anything there. So I'd like to protect this one. Okay, one cool feature, in case you didn't know, is that you can click this little eye here and it'll tell you what's coming up in the future. We know that we're already getting a blight in this land, and we know that we're getting 2 towns built here. You have all this information available to you. In the physical version, you just got to know it, I guess. But, so we are likely going to be taking a blight in this land, but it'll kill 1 Dahan. Helm will fight back, we'll kill everything, we'll be A-okay there. In this land, we're in a similar situation where we're fine, but we can get a free kill. I'm perfectly happy to let these guys build them up, just to knock them back down, produce more fear. It's just better in the long term, so I'm not interested in pulling this, in pulling anything, or pulling this explorer out. I'm just going to take that explorer in, because why not? All right, and this will be the end of the game. So we're going to push all the buildings in. There are no buildings left anywhere on the board, so we just have to use massive flooding, destroy everything in this land, and we will win the game. So I think that this was a great game for showing how to plan ahead and to think about what you're going to be doing at some point in the future. With this spirit, we really only killed adversaries in 2 instances, but it took the entire game to set up for those 2 moments where we were, stockpiling up on this mountain for so long, and then, we prepared everything for this. Sand as well, pushing everything in, letting the build happen. And so people say that River is the best spirit to learn on, and I think that is true. You can learn all about planning, thinking ahead, setting yourself up for scaling, everything. I think River is one of the best spirits in the game. If you're looking for one spirit to play against every adversary, like I said, you can get a level 6 victory with this spirit against everyone. England is very, very difficult, but the other 6 you'll do fantastic against. Please let me know if you have any questions or anything I can help you out with, or if you have any ideas for any future videos. I'd love to hear it. Thanks, guys.